Want to build your very first SwiftUI app? In this tutorial, we'll use Google Books API with MVVM and Async Await to create a real iOS app, step by step, perfect for beginners. So this is the app we'll create. It enables the user to search the books on Google Books API. So if I type in, for example, Swift, if I type in SwiftUI, it will retrieve all the books that contain SwiftUI with the thumbnail. And then if I click on one of the books, it will display the book image in full and the name of the book and the author's details. So this is the app that we'll be creating using MVVM, Async Await and Google Books API. Don't forget to subscribe for more Swift and SwiftUI tutorials. The first thing we need to do within our SwiftUI project is to create our models. So we need to create a new folder. Create your new folder, hold down the control key, right click on the mouse and click on new group. This folder will be used to store our models, so we call the folder or name the folder models. And then within our models folder, we need to create a new Swift file. Name the file books. So these are the data structures that will represent the books and how we decode them from Google Books API. So what we need to do now is to create our structs, book info, which is identifiable since each book will have an ID. Let ID equals UUID. Let title equal string. Let the author, which is an array of string. Reason why we're using an array of string for author, because a book could be created by more than one author. Let thumbnail string, which is the URL for the book cover. The next struct we need to create is for Google Books response, which is codable. And the purpose of using Google Books response, it represents the top level JSON response from Google Books API. Let items, which will be an array of book items, we create the book item struct afterwards. Let total items, which is int, and that will include the total number of results for the search criteria. So if we type in Swift or SwiftUI, if it returns, for example, 3 books, that would be the total results for the search criteria, which would be a count of 3. The next struct we need to create is our book item, which is codable. Which is or has a reference object variable or data type variable of volume info, which is volume info. Volume info struct doesn't exist at the moment, so we need to create that now. Struct volume info codable. Let title string. Let author string. The authors can also be optional. Let image links. Image link doesn't exist at the moment, so we need to create a new struct called image link. Okay, we create that struct within the volume info struct. Struct image links codable. Let small thumbnail string optional, and that will include the small book cover image URL. Let thumbnail string, which is optional, which will include the large book cover image URL. On lines 18, that should be book item and not book items. Now let's compile the project. The next file we need to create is our book API service file, which is a class. And the purpose of that class is to enable Google's Books API to communicate with the service and to retrieve the books. So the first thing we need to do is to create a new folder. So this folder will be a data layer or data service folder, or the API. Let's just call it API layer. But let's just call it the API. And within the API folder, we will have a file called book API service, which is a Swift file. Book API service. So we need to import observation, import SwiftUI, and then create our class which is book API service. we have to create a singleton static let shared book API service, create a new instance using the singleton, which is a shared singleton instance, so we can access the service anywhere within our app. We also need to implement our default init, our default constructor, and the purpose of creating our private init is to prevent others from creating new instances of the singleton. The next thing we need to do is to create our function to fetch the books from the API, from the Google Books API. So the name of this function will be called fetch book info, which will accept a title, which is string, and a start index of 0, and we'll throw async throws if there's an error, and return an array of book info objects. And then int. And this method can be also be used for pagination as well. The next thing we need to do is to encode the search term so that it can be safely used inside the URL. So to do that, I think there's an error on line 18. I've forgotten the open bracket. So we need to take our encoded URL, encoded title equals title dot add percent encoding, which is the second one, and then we set URL query allowed. So what that does, if we have a search term, for example, such as Star Wars, then it will make sure that there's a percentage sign or percentage symbol and 20. So that the actual keyword is valid within the URL. Let URL equals URL string HTTPS www.googleapis.com books v1, and then the volume for the volumes question mark, Q, and then we include our encoded title, that will also include the start index, where paging should start. Equals and the start index ampersand max result. So that's the maximum result that it will return, which is 10. Else, if the URL is invalid, we will throw an error, URL error, which is bad URL. The next thing we need to do is to perform the network request. The underscore that represents response, so if you want to, we could have a response here to see the actual JSON payload on the console. But we're not doing that in this tutorial, so we'll just ignore the response. Equals try, await, URL session, shared data from URL. So when this function has been executed, it will display these results, which would be retrieved by the view model and then displayed on the view. So the next thing we need to do is to decode the actual JSON payload that's coming from Google API Books, Google Books API. JSON decoder decode Google Books response.self from data. So what that will do, it will decode the JSON into our Swift structs that we created earlier, which are, they're all in our model. These are the Swift structs that we created. The next thing we need to do is to convert the API response into an array of book info objects. So we need to type in let books book info with response for items, question mark, map item in, let raw sum equals, so this will get the raw thumbnail, item dot volume, volume info dot image link dot thumbnail. So if it's nil, then we will attempt to get the item dot volume info dot image link dot small thumbnail. Else, it's just nil, we just get nothing, blank. And then the next thing we need to do is to return our book info object, return book info, which will include our title, item, volume, info, title, and also our item, volume, info, authors. If it cannot return that, if it cannot return, if it cannot retrieve that, then we will just include unknown as the report for the authors. And something else I've got to do, we need to include the following: let https bum equals raw bum dot replace or replacing occurrences of http with https. So what that will do, it will fix Google's URL. They often start with HTTP, which iOS blocks, so it will be changed to HTTPS. And then what else do we need to do? Let me compile it. Expected in body. Let me bring this out. Sync rows. The bracket on lines 18 after book info, it should be deleted. Let's compile it again. Sync rows. It should be throws with an S at the end. Just compiling at the moment. Then missed out guard. Guard. Instead of increasing the time of the video, see if I can fix it offline. The issue has now been fixed. There are a few problems with the structs and variable names. For example, volume info was spelled incorrectly. So this is how it should be. And also the closing bracket was missing here on line 21. And we needed to return the books and the response for total items as a tuple, as seen here. This is what this symbolizes. We're returning a tuple. In next week's tutorial, we will implement the book SKU model. Don't forget to subscribe for more Swift and SwiftUI tutorials. Want to build your very first SwiftUI app? In this tutorial, we'll use Google Books API with MVVM and Async Await to create a real iOS app, step by step, perfect for beginners. So this is the app we'll create. It enables the user to search the books on Google Books API So if I type in, for example, Swift, if I type in SwiftUI, it will retrieve all the books that contain SwiftUI with the thumbnail. And then if I click on one of the books, it will display the book image in full and the name of the book and the author's details. So this is the app that we'll be creating using MVVM, Async Await and Google Books API. Don't forget to subscribe for more Swift and SwiftUI tutorials. Today we'll focus on the book view model. This view model is the middle layer between the UI and the view and the data services. It handles the app logic, fetching books, storing them, and updating the UI when things change. So this is one of the view models we'll be creating. So the first thing we need to do is to create a new Swift file. Name the file book view model. And then add the following. Import SwiftUI at main actor, which will ensure all updates in the class happen on the main thread. At observable, and then we create our actual view model, which is called book view model. The view model has a title called book title. And the book title is what the user types into the search bar. An array of books that will be returned or retrieved from Google Books API. We need a state variable called isLoading. That will also show a loading spinner whilst performing the search. We also need to create an asynchronous method called search books. And this method will search the books on the Google's API. Guard, not book title. So if the book title is an empty, then we will perform the rest of the commands in this function. isLoading equals true. Show the loading spinner or activity. And now we call the actual service let fetch book. Try await books API shared dot fetch book info. We need the overloaded method, the first one with the title, and then we just pass our book title. So what that line does, it will call the API service and fetch the books that matches the search term, which is the book title. For example, when the user enters their search term, such as SwiftUI, it will return all the SwiftUI books on the view. Books equals fetch books, and then we attempt to capture any errors that may happen within the catch block. Then we just print the error to the screen. Really, this should be thrown to the view so that the user can see what's happening. Error.localize description. This is just for testing purposes anyway. Books. So we clear the books array because an error happened. And then since we have come to the end of the function, is loading is equal to false. I'll just compile it now. So what else do we need to do? The next file that we need to create is the book details view. And the purpose of this view is to show the detailed information about the selected book that the user clicks on within the list. So what we should do now, we should create a new folder by holding down the control key, right clicking on the mouse, click on new group, name this folder views. Let's move the content file into that folder as well, and then create a new SwiftUI file, a SwiftUI view. Click on next, name the file book detail view, click on create, and then we just enter the following. So how this will work, so if the user clicked on the second book, SwiftUI Essentials iOS edition, then they will be navigated to the detailed view, which is this view here, and it will display the picture or the thumbnail of the book with the book title and the author. So that's what we're creating for the book details view. Let book info. So this is the actual book that was passed in from the list that the user selected. And make it a little bit neater. We also need a scroll view. And the purpose of the scroll view is to allow the content to scroll if the content is too long for the screen. We also need a VStack, spacing 20. If let URL equals to URL string book dot thumbnail and not book dot thumbnail is empty, So if the thumbnail contains a valid URL, then using a sync image, we will attempt to load the URL, the image, so the image can be displayed. Then that should be image dot resizable dot scale to fit. And then we also need to create a frame for the image, which will have a max width, 200, max height, 300, and that will limit the size of the thumbnail or the cover, whatever you want to call it. Corner radius is 12 for rounded corners, and shadow 5, which will add a soft shadow behind the image. And then you need a placeholder. The purpose of the placeholder is to show a progress view. And then we also need an else statement on line 30. The purpose of this, if there's no cover image available, then we need to fall back to show a dummy or a temporary image, similar to a placeholder, which will be called book closed dot font system size 80 dot foreground color dot secondary. Now, if we have all the data, then we will attempt to display our book in this VStack. So the information to be displayed is the book title, and the font type will be title 2. Font weight will be bold. We also want to display, I don't know what happened there. We also want, just delete the preview because we're not using it. My Mac is a bit slow. We also want to display the author. I'll just copy what we just done to display the author's name. So that'll be that should be author or authors, because there could be more than one. Authors book dot authors dot joined separator If there's more than one author, it will join it within a separator, such as it'll be something like this. So author name 1, and then author name 2, and that will be displayed in the text element. The font should be sub-headline, and the foreground color should be secondary. And then we need to add a bit of padding, background, which is rounded rectangle, corner radius of 12. And the reason of having a rounded rectangle is to make sure that the actual background looks more like a card. So to do this, we also have to fill the card with a system color, fill color, system grey 6, and we add some more padding. That will add padding around the entire VStack. And then what we need to do next is to add a navigation title. It's called details, and we add a navigation bar title display mode for inline, which will keep the title small. And then let's see what's happened there. So don't know what's wrong there. Image, no, that should just be image dot resizable. Doesn't like feel, must be missing something. Now that's what the problem is. On line 47, there should just be one closing bracket. After the 12, should just be one closing bracket. And so that looks right. Dot fill, open bracket, color, open bracket. Oh, we should have another closing bracket on line 48. Yeah, I'll just compile it. We will now start to implement some of our content view. So the content view will enable the user to enter the actual search criteria so that they can search for their books. And it will include these elements and a magnifier, and also It will include a list, as you can see here. So that's what we will start to implement right now. We'll start to implement some of it anyway. And then the rest next week. So just import observation. Do we need observation? No, we don't need observation. We need at main actor. At state. Private var view model equals book view model. Really, here we should be using like dependency injection, really. And also maybe like protocol orientated programming as well. But because this is a like beginner's tutorial, I just do it this way. So we create our new instance of the book view model. And then we need to have our navigation stack. And the purpose of the navigation stack is to enable the user to navigate from one view to the next view, such as when the user is on this view, the content view, if they click on any of these books, then they will be navigated to the detailed view. And that's the purpose of the navigation stack. So within the navigation stack, we need a V stack, and then we need a H stack, we will have a text field. The purpose of the text field is to enable the user to enter the search criteria, as in the book that they're looking for. And then that search term will be stored within our view model.book title that we created earlier. Just include a bit of styling, padding, which is 10. Background, which is similar to what we've done earlier. Rounded, rectangle, with a corner radius of 10. The corner radius should be 8. And also fill color, system grey 6. And the benefits of using the system colors is that they automatically adapt to light and dark mode. So you create a better UI, UX within your application. And we just add some padding, .leading. So what we've done so far is we've done this part, the text field, and what else have we done? Yeah, that's it at the moment. So next week we'll continue with the content view to implement the other features and UI elements. Don't forget to subscribe for more Swift and SwiftUI tutorials. Want to build your very first SwiftUI app? In this tutorial, we'll use Google Books API with MVVM and Async Await to create a real iOS app, step by step, perfect for beginners. So this is the app we'll create. It enables the user to search the books on Google Books API. So if I type in, for example, Swift, if I type in SwiftUI, it will retrieve all the books that contain SwiftUI with the thumbnail. And then if I click on one of the books, it will display the book image in full and the name of the book and the author's details. So this is the app that we'll be creating using MVVM, Async Await and Google Books API. Don't forget to subscribe for more Swift and SwiftUI tutorials. In this part of the tutorial, we will continue to implement our content view. The purpose of the content view is to enable the user to search for their book. As you can see, when they type in the name of their book or keyword of the book, click on the magnifying button, it will then return a list of books from Google Books API. So what we need to do now, we've done some padding in the last tutorial. Now we need to add a button to enable the user to perform a search. The button includes an action and also a task, await, view model, search books. Since we're running this function inside a task, we need to use async. And then we need to include the system image name for the button, which is the magnifying glass. We style it with a font style, title 2. We also add some padding. And a background, circle, dot fill, color, blue. And then foreground color, dot white. So it should resemble the system image, as you can see here on the right. We need to add some more padding, dot trailing. And then we also need to add a loading state. View model dot is loading. So if it's loading, downloading book information, different types of books, listings. Then we display within the progress view, searching books, and then we just add a bit of padding. Or if there are no books, then we need to show content on available view. So if not view model is loading and view model dot books is empty, content view, no, that should be content on available view, no records or no results. And then we also display a system image, which is books or book dot close dot fill, and description. The description should be here. Which is a text element, and that should be text. So the caption for that should be try searching for another title. So we inform the user to try another title, then maybe they can retrieve a list of books that relates to their keywords. And yeah, that's right. And then I need to add a bit of padding. The next thing we need to do is, since we now have an array of books that's been returned from Google Books API, we can then loop through the array of books and display each book within our list, and also to give the user an option to, that should be navigation link, to navigate to the detailed view, destination, book, detailed view that we created in the previous tutorial. And this is the detailed view. So when the user clicks on any book, then this view will pop up. We also need a HStack. If let URL equals to URL string book dot thumbnail. So we get the thumbnail, which is the URL, and then if not book dot thumbnail, if the thumbnail is an empty, so the thumbnail contains a valid URL, Then we attempt to display the URL using async image URL image in image dot resizable dot scale to fit, the scale to fill, that should be. And the line 57, I think there's a mistake there. It should be book dot thumbnail. The comma should be there. Yeah, that looks right now. We also need a placeholder. On line 59, that's incorrect. It should just be image dot resizable dot scale to fill. And for the placeholder on line 61, that should be color dot gray dot opacity to make the color a bit light, 0.3. And that will be a placeholder for the image whilst the image is loading. And then on line 63, we add a frame width 50, height 70, with a corner radius of 6. Else we have a fallback. So the purpose of the fallback is if a thumbnail doesn't exist, then we just display system name book dot close at the thumbnail. It's a little bit like this one here. That's what will be displayed if no search results exist. Dot font, large title, dot foreground color, dot gray, dot frame, width 50, height 70. And then the next thing we need to do is to display the book title and author. We display those details within another VStack text book title. It should be book title dot font dot headline. Line limit is 1, so that will avoid long titles wrapping too much. text book dot authors dot join, and if there's more than one author, we just join them together on the same line with separated by a comma. Dot font dot subheadline dot foreground color dot secondary dot line limits is 1 again, and then on lines 85 we just add dot list style is plain, and for the navigation title that would be dot navigation title Google Books. Yeah, just compiling at the moment. And when you run the application, it should resemble this. So if I type in any book now, just say if I type in Java, as you can see it displays all the Java books. If I type in Swift, displays all the Swift books. Excel, displays all the Excel books. And then if you click on the book, it goes to the detailed view. Don't forget to subscribe for more Swift and SwiftUI tutorials.